Have you looked back and seen like, I'm really glad I shored that thing up? Was there a business relational thing, or did it all kind of happen independently? I'm curious as to what came first, the chicken or the egg here, and do you see value in the relational component?
My relationship with Jimmy really began. It's a funny story, actually. What happened was I was raising my Series B, and the investor that had given me a term sheet, which is basically an offer of money, said to me, the term sheet is dependent on you meeting Jimmy Iovine, who I did not know, because he'd worked with him previously. And he said, if anyone knows pop culture, and my startup was in the pop culture world, merging these two cultures of East and West, he was like, if anyone knows pop culture, it's him. Yeah. And I want him to get a look at it. So I go, okay. So I don't really know Jimmy. I'm in Silicon Valley world. I like loosely Googled him. And I always also had this attitude then that I didn't want to Google people because I wanted to know who they were when I met them. I wanted to learn. Yeah. I wasn't a Googler. Like it just wasn't. Obviously, I knew he was successful and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, I get to, I land in LA. I'm like literally in LAX and I get a phone call and he cancels the meeting. I'm like, oh, like I've flown all this way, like to meet this guy who just cancels on a whim. There wasn't even an option of he can meet you later.
Right, it was just no.
Yeah, it was just like he's had an emergency. I think it was with Gwen Stefani, and he has to leave and he can't do the meeting. So I fly back to San Fran. I raised $5 million without him from from a hedge fund. I moved to New York, and then randomly, because I actually turned down the term sheet from the investor.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he knew that Jimmy had counted on me, so he wasn't holding me to that. And I wasn't going back there to meet him.
Yeah.
But I ended up just getting a better offer from another fund. So I take that money, but he wants to stay in touch with me. So one day I'm having dinner with him, and the next day I'm flying to LA. And he goes, did you ever meet, and his name's Drew Lipsher, by the way. And he goes, did you ever meet Jimmy? And I go, no, don't want to meet him. Like, cancel me last minute. Bloody labels. I was so like, labels are going out of business. You know, Daniel and Eck and I were rolling around New York.
I love your London's coming in. It's
right. We were like, we were like, Danny and I were like, yeah, the labels are going to go out of business. Like, you know, I was in the tech world. We just thought they were all like legacy businesses that aren't going to be around. I did have that attitude, which was a bit arrogant, to say the least. So he goes to me, no, you have to meet Jimmy. He was like, you guys are just going to get on so well. For shits and giggles, you should meet Jimmy. Like,
right. Outside of a meeting.
Pure entertainment, you should meet Jimmy. And he texts Jimmy there, and then he goes, Jimmy, you got to meet my girl, like Anjula. You got to meet her, like, you know, don't cancel on her. And so I go there, I go to meet him, and then his assistant says, oh, he's 15 minutes to meet you. I go, what? I came all this way for 15 minutes. And then Drew texts me and he goes, don't be afraid. 15 minutes just gives him an out if he doesn't like you. But if he likes you, you'll be in there for 4 hours. How long was I in there for?
4
hours. And I'm in there for 4 hours. But it was just so funny because I came in with zero desperation because I'd raised my money. And I went in there with, bitches, I just raised $5 million. I don't need you.
Right,
and by the way, you're all going out of business because I've just been with Daniel Eck and I'm seeing what he's building and you're not even going to get a play. And by the way, I've been with the YouTube folks and Jesus, they're going to eat you for breakfast. Like, I
would have loved to have been a fly on the wall.
I literally went in with that attitude. And, you know, going back to like zero desperation, Jimmy was like, I'm flying to New York next week. I'll meet you whenever you want, like breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Let's talk about your company. And it was so crazy. I told him at the time, he asked me, you know, he's just genius, right, Jimmy, right?
Yeah. I'm like, let's not underplay.
Yeah. I mean,
he's kind of the guy.
Complete genius. And he'd asked me this really interesting question, which is the kind of question you would ask.
Oh, what a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Thank
like
you.
The questions you're
goodness.
asking are like really like, so he goes to me, for South Asians, like, what a genius question to ask.
Right,
for South Asians, were there pivotal moments where you felt like your culture had infiltrated American pop culture or Western pop culture? Like, what an effing question.
That's a really great question, yeah.
Because I was talking about how, you know, these cultures were merging. And I said, yeah, absolutely. There is this one moment. And I described it to him. And I said, Jimmy, we were driving in England. And we used to drive with our windows up because when I was listening to Bhangra music or Bollywood music,
people would be ridiculous.
Be like, yeah, people like, Packies go home. Like,
oh my gosh.
People would say all this shit. So we would all drive with our windows up, blaring our music. And then the moment that Jay-Z came out with Punjabi MC with Beware
You
of
could
the
roll the
Boys,
windows down.
oh my God, those windows came down.
Yeah, you did.
Because Kiss FM was playing that shit.
Yeah,
like,
they were.
Everyone was playing that shit. So we were like the coolest shit, right? And it was so crazy. I described that moment to Jimmy and I go, those windows came down and we relaxed into our cars and we were like, yeah. And he goes, wow. He goes, the way you describe that, he goes, that's amazing. So when I had that first breakfast with Jimmy in New York, Jay-Z rocks up.
Wow. How cool.
And I tell you, I was like going shit. Like I was like going shit. I was like, oh my God. I acted very cool though. He'd be very impressed with me. I acted like I was not affected to the point where Jimmy goes, you know who Jay-Z is, right?
And you're like,
and I go,
do,
no,
Jimmy.
No, I go, no, I have no idea. And he goes, well, I was like, of course I do.
That's so funny.
I was like, I told you the story. And he was like,
I could, yeah. He's one that would render me probably speechless, and yeah, I get that. That's really cool. Could you see yourself that young whenever he walked up? Did you have a full circle moment?
I think honestly, I was just so blown away to be with him. And then they asked me to go shopping with them. And I was just like,
You're like, yeah.
no, I had to fake it till I made it. I acted like I was too busy. They were like, you want to come shopping with us? We're just going to Bergdorf's. And I was like, no, guys, I got things to do. And Jimmy was like, what you
That's a
got
good
to
note.
He was like, it's Saturday. What you got to do? I was like, I'm running a startup. Like,
What do you think?
We're busy. We work every single day. And by that point, he was like, literally like, I'll write you any check size you want. Like, he was
Wow.
like, and at that point, I was like, Jimmy, I've raised all the money I need. I don't need any more money.
But I will take you up on breakfast where you can bring
I did
people up.
I did take his money.
Good.
I diluted my investors and took his money, which they weren't happy about at the time. I had to then convince them who Jimmy was. It was so crazy.
Oh, that is really interesting.
Yeah, because they were just tech guys. They didn't know who Jimmy was and they didn't care.
Two completely different
Different
worlds
worlds.
peering
Yeah.
over the fence at each other going, and what do you do?
Because Desi Hits was my first startup.
Right.
And that was the first time I raised money. And by the way, raised money by accident.
Yeah,
like literally was offered money to do this. I was started as a podcast, would you believe?
How funny.
Yeah. And
Really?
we just got went viral on iTunes and we got downloaded so many times. And I was talking to an investor about it and I just go, oh my God, we did this podcast for fun and it got downloaded I don't know, then it was 250,000 times.
Wow.
The investor the next day gave me a term sheet for $1 million on a $4 million pre.